I want to report an earthquake that just happened fairly recently. This was Monday around midday or so in the time zone of where it happened, and this was down in Mexico, actually about 400 miles or so south of Mexico City. But the reason why this is so interesting, and yes, of course, for the people close to it, I'm sure it was, pretty good rocking. Pinotepa de Don Luis, that's where it was at least close to. That's down by the coast. 5.7 magnitude earthquake, and the thing here is that they could actually feel this in Mexico City, all right? There were some buildings that were swaying around. Now, just to give you an idea of the Richter scale here, I mentioned this was a 5.7 quake. You get up into that range, and that's when furniture moves, you get damage in the walls. This is not usually at the catastrophic level, okay? But again, this just happened pretty recently, so we're still kind of unfolding some of the latest developments. I mentioned the buildings did sway in Mexico City. They actually did have a few evacuations there as well. I think it was mainly precautionary in Mexico City. Witnesses felt the ground shake, and no immediate reports of damage, but I'm sure we'll find some fairly soon close to the epicenter.
Strange lights appeared over a volcano in Mexico as it erupted recently. The volcano was partly obscured by clouds, but the top of the volcano could clearly be seen. Then all of a sudden, the lights appeared and seemed to move all over the place. The volcano is southwest of Mexico City and has a name almost as strange as these lights. It's known as the Popocatépetl volcano. It erupts regularly. Now, it's unknown what the cause of these lights are. Were they molten rocks thrown out by the volcano that somehow looked like balls of light when captured by the camera? Were they aliens? Well, we'll let you be the judge.
That political and economic earthquake in the UK, their vote to break with the European Union, the aftershocks are rippling here again today. Wall Street opening the week with new losses for Americans and their 401ks. The Dow plunged another 260 points, down 1.5%. ABC's chief business correspondent Rebecca Jarvis reports.
Tonight, the biggest two-day sell-off since last summer hammered Wall Street. Stocks have tumbled nearly 5.5%. The Dow down 871 points. The typical retirement account erasing almost $5,000 in value, with the British pound cratering to a 31-year low against the dollar.
What's the concern here at this point?
This is a major level of uncertainty worldwide economically.
In the UK, tensions running high. Listen to this voter taking on politicians.
After decades of ignoring the working class, how does it feel to be punched in the nose?
That stinging feeling has nearly 4 million signing a petition for a revote. Prime Minister David Cameron responding, the Brexit will stand.
The decision must be accepted, and the process of implementing the decision in the best possible way must now begin.
But questions over exactly what that path will be has investors everywhere on edge.
Investors don't feel confident right now on how the landscape is going to be, how it's going to look moving forward.
And Rebecca, this uncertainty just isn't going to end. Late in the day, you had those ratings agencies downgrading the British economy. That's going to have ripple effects, too.
Absolutely, George. It means it's more expensive now for Britain to borrow, more difficult for them to do so. And the domino effect here, the longer this uncertainty lasts, the more impact it has on U.S. companies, U.S. jobs, and U.S. markets.
The message was clear, graffiti telling Poles in London to get out. Joanna Mlodzinska of this Polish cultural center is wondering, after last week's Brexit vote, was this racially motivated?
You have to think that's what it was, otherwise why would somebody come specially to the Polish center to write that?
It was just one of several hate crimes after the UK voted last week to exit the European Union, a decision many think was out of concern over immigration and leaving many Poles here, like Margaret Bay-Narowitz, worried.
I'm just devastated to find out that suddenly, out of 50 years, this could happen here. It's just incredible.
Some people believe it is open season now for racism and xenophobia.
MPs in Parliament are angry over the attack at the cultural centre, and Prime Minister David Cameron says he's spoken with his Polish counterpart about it.
We must be very clear about our commitment to tolerance, to diversity, and our complete intolerance of racism and hateful hate crimes that we've seen in recent days.
Some 800,000 Poles live in the UK. Now many of them are wondering if some in Britain are telling them they're no longer welcome.
Good evening. Scott is off tonight. I'm Charlie Rose. The Supreme Court closed its term today with a major decision affirming abortion rights. The court overturned strict regulations that Texas imposed on abortion clinics in the name of safety. The majority found those rules unconstitutionally limit a woman's right to an abortion. Jan Crawford is at the Supreme Court.
Abortion rights supporters erupted with cheers as the court announced the ruling, the most significant abortion case in a decade. The 5-3 decision deeply divided the justices and turned on the vote of moderate Justice Anthony Kennedy. He cast a decisive vote with liberals, striking down the restrictive Texas law. The law required clinics to be like ambulatory surgical centers and said clinic doctors must have admitting privileges at local hospitals. Abortion rights supporters said those restrictions would cut the number of clinics in Texas by half to less than 10 in a state with 60 to 72,000 abortions per year. Texas passed the law in 2013 after horrific abuses came to light in the murder trial of Pennsylvania abortion doctor Kermit Gosnell. 12 other states passed similar laws saying they were necessary to protect women. Those laws are also affected by the decision, which said there was no evidence the regulations would increase safety and that if anything, their impact would be harmful to, not supportive of, women's health. Texas seeks to force women to travel long distances to get abortioned in crammed-to-capacity super facilities, where they are less likely to get individualized attention, wrote Justice Stephen Breyer, and find that quality of care declines. Nancy Northup, president of the Center for Reproductive Rights, hailed the decision as a game changer.
And we will go forward in making sure that all of the laws that are blocking women's access to the constitutional rights will be overturned.
But Carrie Severino, head of the conservative Judicial Confirmation Network, said the decision was based on politics.
This court has been so clear in their political leanings on this issue that I can't imagine an abortion regulation that they would uphold at this point. That's unfortunate.
Now, the 3 dissenting justices called the ruling indefensible and said the court rewrote legal rules to reach today's result. They said these laws were intended to shut down unsafe clinics, Charlie, and they said if they had been on the books in Pennsylvania, it would have prevented the deaths of that patient and 3 infants at the clinic there.
Overseas, tensions ratcheting up between the United States and Russia tonight. In a throwback to the Cold War, American diplomats in Moscow say that Russian agents have been harassing them and their families, prompting a direct complaint to Vladimir Putin. ABC's chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz is here with all the details. Good evening, Martha.
Good evening, George. We have seen Russians harassing U.S. forces at sea more and more often, those jaw-dropping flybys of our ships. But the amount of Russian harassment and surveillance of our diplomats is now like the bad old days of the Soviet Union. U.S. diplomats complaining of walking into their apartments and realizing all the furniture has been moved around. A provocation by Russian agents saying, "We're watching you." Russian agents also accused of hacking personal emails. There have been incidents of tires being slashed, even diplomats' family members being followed. Tensions over Syria and Ukraine have made matters worse, and it's gotten so bad, as you said, Secretary of State Kerry has complained directly to Putin to knock it off. It hasn't worked, George.
No, and it's not subtle spycraft at all. Okay, Martha, thanks very much.
A new report released Monday by the International Energy Agency says about 6.5 million deaths each year can be attributed to both indoor and outdoor air pollution. According to the World Health Organization, that's more than the number of people who die from HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis, and road injuries combined. This is the first air pollution study from the agency, a Paris-based energy security group, which is probably best known for its monthly oil market reports. The report also warns that premature deaths from outdoor air pollution are probably going to rise from 3 million to 4.5 million by 2040, mainly in developing Asia. In a statement, the IEA executive director said no country, rich or poor, can claim that the task of tackling air pollution is complete. We need to revise our approach to energy development so that communities are not forced to sacrifice clean air in return for economic growth. The IEA suggests 3 steps for improving air quality, like setting long-term air quality goals, having a clean air strategy for the energy sector, and making sure countries actually monitor and enforce those goals and strategies. But to help slow air pollution, the developed world is going to need to do some investing in developing countries. That will allow countries like China, whose air pollution contributed to 1.2 million premature deaths in 2010, to finance industrial change and develop low-carbon technologies. If the IEA goals can be reached, developing countries could see the number of people exposed to certain types of air pollution drop. In India, it could fall below 20% by 2040 from the 60% it's at today. For Newsy, I'm Catherine Beek.
A group of suicide bombers has killed 5 people and wounded at least 15 others in a northeastern Lebanese village near the border with Syria. Security sources had earlier put the death toll at 6. There was no immediate claim of responsibility. Security sources said they believed the Islamic State group was responsible. The village is one of several border posts separating Lebanon and Syria. Lebanon has been repeatedly jolted by militant attacks linked to the 5-year war in neighboring Syria.
Nearly 24 people have reportedly been killed in a U.S. drone strike in northern Afghanistan. Local sources say that the strike in Kunduz province left 7 civilians dead. The victims were being held by the Taliban. They were abducted by the militant group on June 8, along with dozens of others from a bus en route from Kabul to the northeastern province of Takhar. Meanwhile, reports say that the attack has also claimed the lives of 14 Taliban militants. The U.S. regularly uses drones for airstrikes and spying missions in Afghanistan and in Pakistan. It says that the air raids target members of the Al-Qaeda and other militant groups. However, reports suggest that civilians have on many occasions fallen victim to the attacks. The airstrikes have sparked anti-U.S. sentiment in both countries.
It's been revealed that weapons sent into Jordan by the CIA and Saudi Arabia for Syrian rebels have been repeatedly stolen, and then they've been sold on the black market. Now, this is according to a new report. It's based on testimonies of American and Jordanian officials that were given to the New York Times and Al Jazeera. And here is what the black market has now been flooded with due to the theft. The CIA's Saudi shipment, in accordance with the Arm and Train program, included Kalashnikov rifles, mortars and rocket-propelled grenades worth millions of dollars. But the Jordanian officers who were part of the corrupt scheme were reportedly spending the proceeds on buying SUVs, iPhones and other luxury items.
What an incredible video this is out of Romania. Just listen to this for a second. Yeah, is that some huge hail or what? Now, I know a lot of people maybe in the United States kind of think that we're one of the only places that gets severe weather maybe, but they get a lot of it over in Europe, especially around this time of year. And this was taken not long ago, just last week. You can see massive hailstones there. I mean, there are clearly some baseballs in there. There was actually a lot of severe weather in Europe last week, including some pretty bad wind damage in Poland. But geez, in order to have hail that big, that's got to be a very tall and nasty thunderstorm.
Hot, dry winds are stoking wildfires in the west. 22 large fires are burning across 8 states. The biggest, east of Bakersfield, California, has claimed at least 2 lives and scorched over 45,000 acres. Maria Villarreal is there.
For 5 days, extreme heat and high winds have fueled the most destructive fire Kern County has ever seen.
Oh my God.
A couple evacuating the fire shot this video as they drove through a wall of smoke and flames. The fire has left behind a trail of destruction.
Is this your roof here? Yes.
This had been Tyra Fuller's home for 16 years.
When I got to my grandmother's rocking chair is when I lost it. I was the first baby she rocked in it. Then my brother, my kids, and it's gone. My kids' babies won't be rocked in that chair.
Most residents living in the hardest hit areas are still being kept away for their own safety. This frustrated homeowner was tackled and arrested after crossing a police roadblock. Jim Terry's house was spared, but he's watching out for his neighbors, patrolling at night to keep looters away.
They're people, they're humans. And I love people, and I believe that's why all these houses and stuff up here have to be taken care of.
More than 2,000 people are still fighting this fire. The damage is estimated at $7.6 million so far. Charlie, officials are working around the clock to try and clear this mess up, but clearly the damage is already done by the Erskine fire, and there is still no word yet on when people will return home.
West Virginia this morning is bracing for more rain after historic flooding killed at least 25 people. Those floods in the past week swamped hundreds of homes as well as cars and roads. The National Weather Service says an event like this only happens once in 1,000 years. Chris Van Cleve is in Clendenin, West Virginia, where a community lost everything. Chris, good morning.
Good morning. This is a scene you see entirely too often here in West Virginia. There used to be 3 homes here. Right now, just one is sort of still standing. The house over here, some of it ended up here. The rest of it sucked into the creek here, ended up about a quarter mile away. Damage assessment teams will be out across the state to try to get a sense for the scope of this damage. That, as the entire region is under a flash flood watch because more rain is coming to West Virginia.
I don't think reality's even set in yet.
This is what reality in Clendenin, West Virginia looks like. Melissa and several generations of the Sanders family lived side by side, right in the path of the rain-swollen Jackson Creek.
My mother-in-law's house is ruined. My brother-in-law's house is ruined. My other brother-in-law's house washed away.
Bill Sanders did not make it out of one of those houses. Diana is his widow.
37 years, right here with that man. This was my life. Everything's gone. But I feel him here.
The damage from Thursday's flooding is far worse than first thought. Over 500 homes in one county alone have been badly damaged or destroyed. In Clendenin, at least 100 are gone. Crews have been working around the clock to clear debris and get the lights back on. Okay. As volunteers have brought food and supplies to those in need. Nearly 100 roads remain closed. Soldiers and first responders have been going door to door in hard-hit areas.
It's okay.
A woman desperate to rescue a litter of puppies trapped for days in this house flagged down the National Guard. First out of the house is Private First Class Jay Meadows, carrying a scared and hungry pit bull puppy through the waist-deep water.
You just got rescued, baby.
Inside that box, 5 baby Pomeranian Chihuahuas and their mom close behind. Finally,
Oh, they got Allie, thank God.
Allie the pit bull, all carried to safety. President Obama has declared this a disaster area. That means federal funds from FEMA are available to help with the rebuilding and recovery. Charlie?
Chris, thanks.